I'd like to remind members to be judicious in the choice of words that they use in the course of our business, and I would like to ask them to do that at all times. The words chosen and the context are all important. If an MP's remarks lead to a lack of order, it may easily compromise our long tradition of dignity and respect.
And we will now proceed to today's statements by members. Déclaration des députés, the Honourable Member for St. John Rothsay.
Mr. Speaker, last Thursday, I met virtually with over a dozen Air Canada employees and Unifor union leaders in my riding to discuss the impact the pandemic has had on them. On Friday, I was informed by Air Canada that nearly 100 additional employees in my riding were being laid off. As a result, the number of people employed by Air Canada in our community has been cut nearly in half since the onset of the pandemic. Our airline sector is a critical part of our local economy, and it is in a state of crisis due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. That's why I am advocating for a federal support package that will ensure the long-term viability of the industry and the jobs it supports post-pandemic. Such a package must also ensure Canadians whose flights were canceled due to the pandemic receive refunds, and it must be implemented as soon as possible. I am working hard to ensure our government has the backs of both our airline workers and those who need refunds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Tobic-Mactaquac.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we continue to celebrate Black History Month and give honor and recognition to the contributions of Black Canadians, I wanted to give a special tribute to hockey legend, New Brunswick's very own, Mr. Willie O'Ree. Originally from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Willie O'Ree has had a tremendous impact on the world of hockey. On January 18, 1958, he was called up to replace an injured Bruin to play against the Montreal Canadiens, becoming the first player to break the black color barrier in hockey. After his playing career was over, Willie has been a champion for diversity and serving as the NHL's diversity ambassador from 1998 to this day. In 2018, he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. It was recently announced that on January 18th of next year, he will be honored yet again by having his number 22 retired by the Boston Bruins at TD Garden on the 64th anniversary of his historic entry into the NHL. Mr. O'Ree, congratulations on this tremendous honor, and thank you for your contribution to Canada's beloved game and for your continued advocacy and promotion of diversity and respect for others. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The tradition of quilting is certainly well known here in Kitchener-Conestoga, and it's now been taken to a new level with a community art initiative created by a local University of Waterloo architecture student, Brenda Reed. She's creating From Behind the Mask, a project to help bring people together in spirit. Brenda's inviting people to share their pandemic stories on pieces of fabric. The pieces will then be tied together, showing our physical distance while representing our social ties. From students to seniors, our community is getting involved, including support from community members, local businesses, public libraries, the Homer Watson Art Gallery, and financial support from the Waterloo Arts Fund. The finished quilt project will be assembled and displayed this summer, and images will be uploaded to create a digital quilt. It is art that is keeping us together while apart. Thank you, Brenda, and to everyone for adding your stories to help create a tribute to our spirit and resilience here in Waterloo Region and throughout Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable député de Longueuil-Saint-Hubert.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today, I'd like to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Ciel et Terre, Sky and Earth, an organization that works on the environment. Now, this organization was a real pioneer in 1995 because at the time, environmental causes were less popular than today. But despite that, these volunteers rolled up their sleeves and organized recycling campaigns in Longueuil schools, and they also took action. Every year, this organization recruits dozens of volunteers to clean the banks of the St. Lawrence, which is an excellent idea. It also participates in public debate. It prepares reports on environmental questions and presents briefs to government organizations during consultations. The people working at Ciel et Terre are making our public policy better and more environmentally friendly. As MP for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert, I'd like to thank the organization and all its volunteers and all citizens who are involved in protecting the environment. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Alfred Pellan. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to wish my son Gabriel an excellent 7th birthday. Buon compleaños, Gabriel. Today, I would like to mark the days of school retention between the 15th and 19th of February. It's been hard for kids lately. They always need perseverance in school, but it's been even harder with all the changes we've seen at school over the last year. People have had to take their classes in the kitchen, in the living room. They can't play with their friends, and they've had to wear masks. It's been a difficult year full of learning and adaptation for all of the students and teachers at Alfred Pellan. I'd like to congratulate all the teachers and all the students, as well as the staff, for their perseverance, resilience, and everyday victories in a different school context. You continue to inspire and impress us. Keep going, keep it up. Bravo.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, I would like to celebrate the achievements of Anthony Auclair from Beauce, who recently won the Super Bowl. He's a real pride for Canadians and people from Beauce. Everything starts with a dream. And Beauce has represented Canada in many different parts of the sports scene. For example, there's also Marie-Philippe Poulin from Beauceville, who was named Best Female Hockey Player in the World, Elliot Grondin, an Olympic athlete from Sainte-Marie, a snowboard cross athlete who recently got 2 medals at the World Cup, Raphaël Lessard from Saint-Joseph, who is a NASCAR driver in the U.S. and who just started his season, and Thomas Chabot from Sainte-Marie, who is part of the younger players in the Ottawa Senators in the NHL. And there are also several other young athletes who are the pride of people from Beauce and all Canadians, and who are putting in the effort they need to make their dreams come true. Sport is in Beauce's DNA, as well as pride, so I'd like to congratulate all of these Beauce athletes today and tomorrow.
The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, Black healthcare workers are both at the forefront and behind the scenes of this unprecedented battle against COVID-19. During a virtual Black History Month event in Brampton West, we celebrated Black frontline workers for their remarkable contributions during such a critical time in our country. We heard from Crystal, Tristan, Sharika, and Angela on what it means to be a Black healthcare worker during the pandemic, along with Dwight, Prudence, Heather, and Selenor, who I've had the privilege to work alongside at the front lines as a volunteer nurse. While we owe it to our healthcare workers to end this virus, we also owe it to them to end another virus that plagues our society and institutions, which is anti-Black racism. As a proud member of Parliament from Brampton West and as a proud member of this Liberal government, we will not rest and continue to work towards ending systemic racism in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a very happy Black History Month.
L'honorable député de Marc-Aurèle-Fortin.
The Honourable Member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, with the current health crisis, entrepreneurs in my riding, and all of our ridings, are going through a very difficult period. They need to do whatever they can in order to be ready for things to get back to normal. So today, I would like to speak to you about a business in my riding, Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. This company is called Trevi. It's specialized in swimming pools. The company has shown great resilience and cleverness in order to be able to survive. It's a family business, and it had made the choice to produce all of its products in Quebec, whether in-ground pools or not. My office is working closely with Trevi in order to help this prominent Quebec business get through the pandemic, and to enable it to grow when the pandemic is in the rearview mirror. Because we need to get through this crisis together, Mr. Speaker, and I hope we'll come back even stronger after this crisis. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Amherstburg Freedom Museum is in my riding, in the town of Amherstburg. The museum tells the story of Black slaves seeking refuge in Canada by the Underground Railway, pioneers who built homes, businesses, schools, and churches in Essex County. The first Black National Historic Site in Canada, Founded in 1966 by Melvin Simpson, the museum showcases their vital role in the Canadian tapestry. Elise Harding Davis, Curator Emeritus and celebrated Black Canadian history consultant, can trace her own Canadian ancestry back 7 generations. Elise has worked tirelessly to preserve Black history in Canada for the next generation. Finally, a salute to Claudius Thomas. Claudius leads the local chapter of Black Boys Code, a national organization founded to prepare Black youth for success in today's technology-dominated economy, each of them leaving a world a better place than they found it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, 25 years ago, the Honourable Jean Augustine established each January as Black History Month across Canada. This month, while we celebrate the incredible achievements of Black Canadians, we need to reflect on the systems that limit them from achieving their true potential. There's an urgent need for criminal justice reform, to reimagination of policing, and to ensure equal access to jobs, housing, capital, healthcare, and education. Today, the Minister of Justice introduced important changes to sentencing to turn the tide of disproportionate impact of the current system on young Black Canadians. Despite the impact of anti-Black racism, Black communities in Canada are resilient, and during the COVID-19 pandemic, many members of this community have been on the front lines to keep us all safe. I would like to thank the Black frontline workers who've been at Taibu Community Health Centre, Jamaican Canadian Association of Nurses, Black Health Alliance, and those across the country who continue to keep us healthy, safe, and to make Canada great every day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
We've all heard from struggling small businesses in our ridings. Small business owners don't have pensions, they don't have employer health and dental insurance, vacation pay, sick leave, maternity leave, a minimum wage, or overtime pay. It's a tough life owning your own business, and yet thousands of Canadians with a dream and an entrepreneurial spirit do it anyway, and they provide the goods and services upon which every community depends. Sadly, these hardworking Canadians have borne the brunt of COVID restrictions, and while relief programs allow some business owners to cling to their life's work, they need customers, and they are watching helplessly as the rest of the world surges ahead of Canada with vaccines and the end of pandemic restrictions. This government owes it to small businesses who are burning their savings and piling on debt to deliver vaccines to safely open the economy and save our local businesses.
L'honorable député de Portneuf, Jacques.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf, Jacques Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our country had 2 founding peoples, Francophone and Anglophone, as well as our First Nations. Now, the Official Languages Act, adopted in 1969, states that English and French are our 2 official languages. We know that French is in decline in Quebec and in Francophone communities outside Quebec. The Official Language Commissioner's last report is very clear. It is urgent to take action to prevent French from declining in our country. A Conservative government would take action within 100 days by modernizing the Act. It would show a renewed spirit to prioritize the protection of French. It would protect French in the courts and provide resources, financial resources for Francophone universities. It would take action with the Treasury Board to protect public servants. As the leader of the opposition said clearly, it is time to take action to protect French throughout Canada. How can Quebecers and Canadians trust this Liberal government, which hasn't done anything to protect the French language over the 5 last years?
Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Social media. I'm sorry, my lights aren't on. Merci. Je peux recommencer? Mr. Speaker, every day my social media feed shows me people across Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing doing their most to raise spirits and bring a smile to others. That's how I learned of Thessalon First Nation Snow Sculpture Contest, and where I hear concerts from fantastic musicians like George C. Williamson and his grandson Cole Hewson, or Robbie Shawana, all from Manitoulin Island, and Smooth Rock Falls, Johnny Lemieux with Estelle Deschamps. In Espanola, Dennis Lendrum and volunteers have been improving the Black Creek Snowshoe Trail on the Espanola Game and Fish Club's property for all to enjoy. In Wawa, brothers Miles and Spencer Jennings are clearing and maintaining a skating path and small hockey rink on Wawa Lake. In Kapuskasing, the Rotary Club is hosting a photo scavenger hunt on their hiking trails, while students from École Secondaire Jeunesse Nord in Blind River and from Asigenac Public School make Valentines for seniors in their communities. It's clear that Canadians are finding innovative ways to help each other through the pandemic, and easy to see that we are truly in this together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Laurentides-Labelle.
The honourable member for Laurentides-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, there are currently activities for the 50th anniversary of the organization Loisirs Laurentides, and I would like to join in to underscore the exemplary work of all partners who are enabling this organization to be a remarkable player in sports and recreation in the beautiful Laurentides region. The organization initially started on the 22nd of February 1971 in order to promote physical activity and healthy living in the riding. I would like to thank the volunteers for their remarkable work, as well as the directors of the organization. They have made it a real reference in the region. I hope that Loisirs Laurentides will continue for a long time and that it will enjoy its 50th anniversary, a remarkable milestone. Thank you.
West Nova.
Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotia has been so fortunate during the second wave of COVID-19. In our province of almost 1 million souls, we only have 14 active cases and only one patient in hospital as of this morning. Quite a contrast compared to other provinces and territories in our great country. However, our economy continues to take a huge hit due to this Liberal government's failed vaccine rollout plan. Delays in vaccine directly correlate with delays in our economy, and with Canada currently ranked 52nd in the world in terms of immunization, it will be impossible for us to foresee a strong economic recovery in the near future. From the start of the pandemic, my constituents in West Nova took a hands-on-deck approach to help slow the spread of the virus. But we are getting tired of the isolation and would like to get back to normal. They want to get back to work or even visit their grandchildren in other provinces. And the only way to do this is through a strong vaccination program that this Liberal government has yet to produce. We need to get the vaccine rollout right in order to secure jobs and secure our economic future. Let's get all Canadians and Nova Scotians back to work.
Honourable member for Coast of Bays, Central Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, it is with great pride that I pay my respects to a great man and proud Newfoundlander. Mr. Speaker, Gerald Thompson of Grand Falls, Windsor recently passed away, and I would like to pay tribute to his community service. He was dedicated to the Memorial United Church, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, a dedicated member of Lodge Northcliffe for over 40 years, and indeed a dedicated Liberal from Joey Smallwood to today. Gerald left a great impression on his community, one of great respect, and I will also miss his great poems. Gerald's greatest legacy is his family, 4 children, 15 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren, and to his partner, to someone who stood with him through an incredible journey, his wife, Ruth. On behalf of all of us here in the House of Commons, we send our sympathies. God bless you, Gerald.
Oral questions. Question orale, the honourable member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, the Independent Federation of Businesses today published a report saying that 1 out of 6 small businesses were considering permanent closure. Now we're talking about 20% of jobs in the private sector. We've already lost more than 800,000 jobs. Unemployment rate is 1/3 higher than the average in the G7. The government promised 1 million jobs. When? When will these workers get their paycheck? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question because it gives me the opportunity to share good news with Canadians. This week, the International Monetary Fund published its annual report to assess Canada. The report revealed that the strong and decisive actions of Canada have allowed essential support to our economy and allowed our financial markets to function, as well as protected lives and means of subsistence for Canadians. These aren't my words, they're the words of the International Monetary Fund. The honourable member for Carleton.
Update their talking points over there instead of just reading a selective quote from some starchy report. The reality is this. Here are the numbers. Across the G7, the unemployment rate averages 6%. In the US, it's 6.3%. In the EU, it's 7.5%. In Canada, 9.4%. We are far worse than all the other countries who are also facing the COVID crisis. Isn't it clear that while those economies are suffering under COVID, our economy has the added problem of suffering under the policies of this government?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me be clear about the success of our government's policies in supporting Canadian workers and Canadian jobs. As of January, Canada had recovered 71% of the jobs lost since the beginning of the pandemic, and that compares to only 56% recovered in the US. And Mr. Speaker, Canada has a 64.9% labor force participation rate. That's higher than Germany at 56%, the US at 61.7%, higher than Japan, higher than South Korea. We are doing well, Mr. Speaker, in tough times.
The honourable member for Carleton.
That answer just demonstrates how out of touch this government is. If the policies were working, we wouldn't have 834,100 Canadians more out of work than were a year ago. If it were working, then we wouldn't have an unemployment rate that's 50% higher than the average of the G7 and of the United States of America. The reality is that this government is delivering among the worst jobs records on planet Earth, and Canadians are starting to wonder how they're going to put food on the table or roof overhead. When will those people who've lost their jobs get their paychecks back?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know the debates in this House are inevitably partisan. And that's why I know that Canadians will be really pleased to learn that the International Monetary Fund, the premier international financial authority, this week published a report with a very positive verdict on our government's policies so far. The IMF said that our government's strong and decisive actions provided crucial support to the economy and helped protect lives and livelihoods. And they predict our GDP will grow by 4.4% this year.
The honourable member for Arlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, for months we've been clearly saying that the Liberal government has failed colossally in protecting Canadians. In addition to the COVID-19 related mortality rate, which now has exceeded 20,000 deaths, we've seen our economy shut down and no end to the end of this collective lockup. The decisions to sign a deal with the Communist Party of China is a disaster. Once again, why did they make a deal with the Communist Party of China? The Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, with regard to vaccines, let me be clear. Canada received 10 doses of vaccines per Canadian, and we have the most diversified and exhaustive portfolio in the world. We have received 1.5 million doses, and we will receive 400,000 more doses this week alone. The honourable member for Arlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I can also be clear with the minister. Getting 6 million doses by the end of March means 8% of Canadians, or 3 million Canadians, will be vaccinated by the end of March. We're at 54th. Well, then we'll be lower still at the end of March. My question is simple. Does the Prime Minister have a backup plan because the Plan A is a failure? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, from the beginning, the government understood that it was important to have an A, B, C, D plan, and that is why we have the most exhaustive and diversified vaccine portfolio in the world. We did not decide to risk being dependent on one single vaccine alone. Health Canada has already approved Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, and Health Canada is looking at AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and other vaccines. The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. I think we're in Plan D and not far from failure. This morning in committee, the Working Group on Vaccine Vigilance confirmed that it did not recommend the government take part in the CanSino vaccine project with China. The Working Group said that it didn't have the scientific evidence to recommend the project. The government still decided to go against the opinion of the experts and to put all its eggs in the basket of CanSino. We lost time, and Canada wasn't able to develop a new strategy to produce vaccines locally. Why did the government not listen to the experts? Who made the decision? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of the crisis, our government always followed the advice of experts, researchers, doctors. That's our policy, and it's an essential one during a pandemic. When it comes to vaccines, we purchased the most exhaustive and diversified portfolio of vaccines in the world. At the same time, we have focused on domestic production. The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, I would invite the Deputy Prime Minister to listen what the Industry Committee heard this morning, and she would realize that the reality isn't the same. The Secretary of the expert group, Mr. Scott Douglas, said that science did not allow them to recommend CanSino. The government is hard to follow. It refused to give $2 million to test the vaccine project by Dr. Codinger at University of Laval, supposedly under the recommendation of experts, but it put $56 million in a Chinese project against the recommendation of the group of experts. This proves they are political decisions because it listens to silence only when it suits it. Who made the decision to go forward with China? Who stopped the Quebec vaccine? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government invested and will continue to invest in vaccines made in Canada and in national biomanufacturing. Dr. Kobinger received a $1 million subsidy from the federal government for his research. When it comes to the funding for coronavirus research, we always invest in promising vaccines here in Canada and Quebec. The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The NDP fought for the implementation of a paid federal sick leave program, but when the Liberal government introduced the program, they missed the boat. It's not a flexible plan. It's not accessible. The amount isn't sufficient to help families. There are too many delays with payments. So, can the Prime Minister commit to improving this program to protect workers and stop the spread of COVID-19? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we developed sick leave benefits for workers, no matter where they may live or work, will not have to pick between going to work sick and putting food on the table. This is an important program. It's part of our commitment to ensure the safe startup and provide 10 paid sick days. The provinces have put in place also protections for employment. I encourage all eligible Canadian workers who need this support to apply.
Burnaby South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. New Democrats fought to bring in a paid sick leave program at the federal level. But when the Liberals introduced the program, it had a number of problems. It's not flexible enough. It's not accessible enough. The amount is not enough to support families. And we're finding that the delays in receiving the payment are just too long. So there's an opportunity here. Experts all agree that paid sick leave is one of the best tools to stop the spread of COVID-19. So will the Prime Minister commit today to improving paid sick leave so it protects workers and helps us stop the spread of COVID-19?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the member opposite that paid sick leave is absolutely essential. It is essential any time, and it is particularly important during this global pandemic. And that is why our government was very pleased to put in place, as part of the Safe Restart Agreement with the provinces and territories, 10 days of paid sick leave provided by the federal government. That sick leave is there, and I encourage all Canadian workers who need it to use it.
The Honourable Member for Portage-Lisker.
Mr. Speaker, Uyghurs in China are subject to the single largest mass surveillance program in human history, and Huawei equipment is helping in their oppression. Security experts around the world have been raising major concerns about Huawei, but despite this, the Minister of Industry has decided to sign off on a $5 million deal with Huawei anyway. He even bragged about it on Twitter. How in the world could this government think it wise in any way to hand over taxpayers' dollars to Huawei?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for a question that I really appreciate. As you know, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians which are watching, our government will continue to ensure that Canadian networks are kept safe and secure. While we cannot comment on any specific companies, an examination of the 5G technologies and a review of security and economic consideration is ongoing. National security is paramount when we assess the next steps. We carefully assess these matters with allies and partners around the world, and will make the best decision in the interest of Canadians for generations to come.
The Honourable Member for Portage-Lisker.
Well, it looks like the minister is okay with turning the same blind eye to this genocide as his boss is. The genocide in China has been called the largest mass detention of human beings since the Holocaust, and Huawei appears to be right in the middle of it. When are these Liberals going to show some courage and get serious about Huawei, or at least cut them off from getting taxpayers' dollars?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have enormous respect for my colleague, but I would take exception with the premise of her question. She well knows, because she's a very well-experienced member of this House, that the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council is responsible for the administration of the Alliance grants that she was referring to. Grants are awarded to an independent process and managed at arm's length from government. But further, she would know, last September, we published a policy statement on research security, which included instructing the federal granting councils to review their security policies so that Canadian researchers can appropriately protect their work. Mr. Speaker, that's an issue we take very seriously, and we will continue to protect the interest of Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
A troubling report revealed that Canada's Visa Application Centre in Beijing is operated by a subcontractor owned by Chinese police forces. Canadians are concerned sensitive and confidential information will fall into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, one that is committing Uyghur genocide and detaining the two Michaels. This brings into question the integrity of our visa application process. I'm baffled. Why does this government think it is acceptable for a company with ties to the Chinese government to be running our visa offices?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take the privacy and security of all applicants very seriously and ensure that we meet high standards when it comes to transparency and privacy. Protection of personal information is a primary consideration when choosing any service provider, such as a visa application center. Our officials closely monitor that these processes are followed, that Canada's stringent privacy standards are being met. We will always ensure that the privacy of all applicants remains protected.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's obvious to Canadians that a company with ties to the Chinese government should not be operating our visa application centres. Last night in committee, a former Hong Kong legislator, Nathan Law, who has experienced first-hand brutality of the Chinese regime, and a former Canadian diplomat to China, Charles Burton, called for an end to the contract. Given the contract's troubling connections to the Chinese government, will the minister end the contract? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll reiterate that we take the protection of Canadians' privacy very seriously. Information is always handled according to Canada's privacy laws, and the data is stored on Canada temporarily and then deleted. Our officials closely monitor that these processes are followed. Canada's stringent privacy standards.
One moment, I believe we have I'll have to interrupt. I believe we have a point of order.
We cannot hear the minister. The interpreter cannot understand the minister. Please ask him to lower his mic.
Over the arm and maybe just about an inch above or below his mouth, and then we'll start over. Do we want to start over with the question? I think we'll start over with the honourable member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's obvious to Canadians that a company with ties to the Chinese government should not be operating our visa application center. Last night in committee, a former Hong Kong legislator, Nathan Law, who has experienced first-hand brutality of the Chinese regime, and a former Canadian diplomat to China, Charles Burton, called for an end to the contract. Given the contract's troubling connections to the Chinese government, will the minister end the contract, yes or no?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I will reiterate that we take the protection of Canadians' privacy very seriously. Information is always handled according to Canada's privacy laws, and the data is stored in Canada temporarily and then deleted. Our officials closely monitor that these processes are followed. We will always ensure the privacy of Canadians remains protected.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, members of this cabinet are persistently denying the Uyghur genocide in spite of overwhelming evidence. Their proposed way of unearthing the evidence they say they require would be for the government of China to offer unfettered access to the scene of this genocide. But short of their proposed guided tour of the concentration camps, what evidence would they consider sufficient to recognize this genocide?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been very, very clear from the beginning that we are very seriously concerned with the allegations that have been brought forward with respect to the treatment of Uyghurs. We have demanded that the government of China allow unfettered access to a group of experts to examine the situation. But in parallel, we are also working with our international partners in order to pool our expertise and best understand all of the allegations, most of them extremely credible, that have been made against the Chinese in their treatment of the Uyghurs.
Honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, the evidence is just so clear, and we continue to see breathtaking cowardice from this government and that minister. Yes, we understand that China is powerful, and so is Nazi Germany. But I'm only here today because Canadians were willing to stand up to a genocidal power that threatened my grandmother's life. Will the minister finally put aside his nonsense talking points, think about his own legacy and his own humanity, and finally speak the truth about this issue?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't very much appreciate those very personal comments made against me as a person, but I will respond by saying that this government is very seized with the issue of the treatment of Uyghurs and other minorities, and we are looking at this very carefully in concert with our international partners so that we get to the bottom of the allegations, very serious allegations that have been made against China with respect to the treatment of the Uyghurs and other minorities. And we will continue to do that with single-mindedness.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In January 2020, the COVID genetic sequence was made public so that scientists around the world could start the race to find a vaccine. The government didn't take action to develop a homegrown vaccine. 2 months later, on March 11th, the WHO declared that there was a pandemic. The government kept the car in park. The expert panel supposed to advise the government on local production met for the first time on June 26th. Imagine, while everybody else has been racing to find a vaccine for 5 months, the government stayed in the starting block. Why? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for the question. I want to establish some facts. March 11th, the World Health Organization declared there was a pandemic. 12 days later, Mr. Speaker, the federal government announced $172 million to support the biomanufacturing sector in Canada. On April 23rd, we announced $600 million in additional funding. So approximately a month after the announcement of the pandemic, there was more than $800 million that was made available to support the biomanufacturing sector in the country. We will continue to build a biomanufacturing sector that is resilient. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the experience with SARS in 2003, the government knew that we had to invest massively in research and production in order not to have to depend on foreign countries. That's the very first thing that had to be done at the beginning of the pandemic. Not only did it not do it, but it took 5 months just to get the experts together that it wanted to consult. 5 months behind, Canada had already lost the race to the vaccine. How can this government have been so passive in such an important moment of public health? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for the question. As I said, in less than a month, Mr. Speaker, the federal government had put in place more than $800 million. I want to be a little bit more specific because I know this will be of interest to him. We made investments, historic investments. If you look, for example, $173 million to Medicago in Quebec City, $4 million Glucovax Pharma in Montreal, $1.3 million to Biodextrix in Laval, $4.6 million to Genova Pharma, $4.1 million to Laurent Pharmaceuticals. Mr. Speaker, we have invested more than $350 million in Quebec, and we will continue to invest in order to build a resilient biomanufacturing industry in the country. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's talk about Medicago. They sent a letter in March and they got a response in July. That's the delays of the government. Let's go back over it again. The government did not create the consortium of all the researchers with the experts to find a vaccine in Canada. It didn't get the experts together to advise it before June 26th, 5 months late. It didn't invest in production capacity before August 31st, 7 months late. It didn't invest in a credible fashion in homegrown vaccine before October 23rd, 9 months later. The result is that we are depending on foreign countries and we are getting vaccinated late. Why did the government not show a vision instead of just being late? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question. On the contrary, as I indicated, we have made strategic actions with a long-term vision. Mr. Speaker, investing $350 million in Quebec for biomanufacturing is exactly the kind of thing that Quebecers want to see. I talked earlier today to Dr. Kobinger. I speak with the different stakeholders across the country in order to bring home the supply chain in order to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that we are in a much better position if ever there is a public health need again. We will have a resilient industry in the country, Mr. Speaker.
Wellington, Halton Hills.
Monsieur le Président, question.
Mr. Speaker, a simple question. There is a motion before the House. It asks the government to officially recognize the genocide perpetrated by the People's Republic of China against the Uyghurs and Turkic Muslims. Will the government support this motion? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In fact, we have been positive towards this motion. It was time to debate this very important question. I'm listening to the debate, and everybody in the House is going to speak, and we'll see when the vote takes place what happens. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, let me ask a slightly different question. If the House adopts the Uyghur genocide motion, but the government votes against it, will the government uphold democratic norms and respect the will of this House and recognize the Uyghur genocide?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, we welcome the debate today, and I participated in myself in it, and many other colleagues on both sides of the aisle are doing the same thing. We will see the outcome next week, and I'm not going to speculate about that outcome. It's totally hypothetical, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, on to Indo-Pacific. President Biden is assembling a coalition of democracies to counter China's threats in Indo-Pacific. Today, the Biden administration is participating for the first time in the quadrilateral security dialogue made up of Australia, India, Japan, and the United States. Some say this could evolve into an Eastern NATO. Is Canada going to be part of this, as it was with the creation of the Western Alliance, NATO? And did the Prime Minister, in his recent phone calls with Prime Minister Modi and President Biden, raise this issue?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has had an interest in the Indo-Pacific area for trade. For example, our participation in CPTPP. We're very interested in the ASEAN group of countries. We have a number of interests with respect to countries like India, South Korea, Japan, and others in the region in Southeast Asia. It is natural for Canada, which is a trading nation, to want to develop those, and we will be continuing to do that in the years ahead.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Facebook's attempt to block news media in Australia is a direct attack on every nation's sovereignty. When this government says that they stand with Australia, I say, well, God help the poor Australians. Because when Facebook was found guilty of breaking Canadian law, the Liberals did nothing. When Facebook needs staff, they just call into the minister's department. I mean, Facebook Canada is run by a former Liberal operative, for crying out loud. Canadians deserve a government that will hold this rogue company accountable. Instead, they have one that holds their hand. So will the minister insist that Facebook pay what they owe in Canada now? That would be solidarity with the Australians.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for his question. We've been very clear for many months. In fact, our government is at the forefront of the battle to ensure that the web giants pay their fair share. Should it be when it comes to our cultural heritage in Canada? Should it be for media or online harm? We are, just last week, Mr. Speaker, I was in conversation with France, Germany, Australia, Finland, so that we can work together to tackle these very important issues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The
Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, it's no secret when it comes time to support French language education, the Liberals tend to drag their heels. The official languages in education program has been frozen for years, even though student enrollment is on the rise. In Alberta, the St. Jean campus is literally under attack by the Kenney government. In Ontario, Laurentian University is fighting for its life. What's it going to take for the Liberals to wake up to the urgent need to stand up for Francophones' education rights? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question, because clearly we can always do more to protect official languages. And we see outside Quebec the need for access to French language universities and education so that the minority language communities can continue to thrive. And I would like to condemn the inaction of Conservative governments in the provinces who are neglecting this serious issue. And this directly affects the vitality of French in Canada.
The Honourable Member for Avalon.
Mr. Speaker, with the world's longest coastline and connected to 3 oceans, Canada is well positioned to be a global leader in the blue economy, an economy that creates good middle-class jobs while ensuring healthy oceans and sustainable ocean industries. Can the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans please tell this House what our government is doing to grow our blue economy?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague from Avalon for the question. Mr. Speaker, as he said, Canada is an ocean nation. We have the largest coastlines in the world, and over 300,000 Canadians are employed through our blue economy. That's why it's important that we develop a blue economy strategy that's second to none. Last week, we launched the engagement with a number of stakeholders through roundtables, including ones with industry, including fisheries and aquaculture, academia, ocean science, and women in ocean leadership. Mr. Speaker, the blue economy strategy is going to be ambitious, it's going to be prosperous and productive, as well as sustainable. It's extremely important for us to develop this strategy for our future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, I want to follow up on the questions asked by my colleague from Abitibi-Temiskaming. Today in Industry Committee, the Vaccine Task Force said that the deal with CanSino, which fell through for vaccines, was struck before the task force was formed. But after the task force was formed, they reviewed the deal and recommended going with it. So if the Vaccine Task Force said it was a no-go, why did the Liberals proceed?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we received the advice of the Vaccine Task Force to proceed with 7 vaccine manufacturers. That's exactly what we did. We put in place the largest, most diverse portfolio of vaccines in any country in the world. We began inoculations as one of the first countries in the world to do so, and we are continuing to ensure that Canadians have access to vaccines. Indeed, 14.5 million Canadians can expect to be vaccinated prior to the end of June, Mr. Speaker. 400,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine have arrived in Canada and are being distributed. That's hard work, Mr. Speaker. That's progress, and we're sticking to it. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, no, that's not what I asked. The Vaccine Task Force said today that they expressly advised against proceeding with CanSino, and we know that that deal actually had a huge impact on the delays that we're seeing in vaccine delivery today. And those delays have cost Canadian lives, jobs, hopes, and more. The Vaccine Task Force, the science-delivered approach from this government, said no go with CanSino, yet this government proceeded anyways. Why were they so enamored with this Chinese company at the expense of Canadian lives?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you what we were enamored with. We were enamored with ensuring that we acted on the advice of the Vaccine Task Force in order to execute those 7 agreements in very short order. And I would like to thank all of the public servants at PSPC that worked throughout the summer and on weekends to ensure that they got that job done. And in addition, Mr. Speaker, we are well on track to have 6 million vaccines in this country prior to the end of March, another 23 million vaccines in this country prior to the end of June, and 84 million vaccines in this country prior to the end of September, so that every Canadian who wants a vaccine will indeed have access to it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, China has been holding 2 Canadians, the 2 Michaels, for over 800 days. China has blocked vaccine shipments to Canada. China's turning a blind eye to the Xinjiang genocide. China has banned Canadian pork and canola imports. China has simply no respect for human rights. Mr. Speaker, what's the Prime Minister waiting for? When will he join the Conservatives in calling for a change of venue for the Olympics? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that question. It's a very specific question about the Olympics. We've said this repeatedly. The International Olympic Committee makes those decisions, and that continues to be our position on that. The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, that's pathetic, an answer like that, and a lack of leadership. Our athletes should not have to pay the price for the ignorance of Liberals and the Prime Minister. Recently, it came to light that our Canadian athletes are being briefed on what they can and cannot say in China to avoid being targeted by Chinese authorities. Mr. Speaker, this situation's critical. It's serious. How can the Prime Minister accept this? And when will he show some leadership and demand the Games be relocated? And even make that demand to the International Olympic Committee if necessary. The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my honourable colleague knows full well, it's the International and Paralympic Olympic and Paralympic committees that make those decisions about our Canadian athletes' participation. We have full confidence that the Canadian committees will make those decisions properly in full respect of Canadian fundamental values. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamitis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, this government is gutless when it comes to gun control. Not only are they doing nothing to ban handguns, they've completely abdicated responsibility by asking municipalities to act in their stead. Mr. Speaker, we can't have hundreds of different gun policies in Quebec because the federal government won't do its job. Yesterday, the National Assembly unanimously called for this government to delegate it the power to control handguns. Will the government respect this unanimous request from Quebec? The Honourable Minister.
And the member's question makes me wonder if she's even read the bill. The legislation that we've brought forward will provide Canadians with the strongest regulatory framework for the restriction of handguns in all parts of the country. And coupled with the legislation we passed with Bill C-71 and the new measures in C-21, we will have the strongest restrictions in every place, in every part of the country. There is nothing in this legislation that compels any municipality or Quebec to do more. But, Mr. Speaker, we are quite willing to work with the willing who want to do more in their communities. And we've heard from many municipalities and provinces that are prepared to do more, and every order of government has a responsibility to the safety of their citizens.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamitis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, too cowardly to control handguns, but too vain to let Quebec do it for them. If the Liberals won't help, could they at least try to do no harm? We can't have Boisbriand, Sainte-Thérèse, and Blainville all coming up with 3 different but overlapping gun policies in the same place. Mr. Speaker, handgun murders have shot up by 40% in 10 years. If the government is unwilling to do its job, would they at least let Quebec do it for them? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the member's unparliamentary and rude language notwithstanding, let me be very clear that the legislation that we have brought forward will provide all Canadians in every place, including in the province of Quebec, with the strongest regulatory framework that prevents the handguns getting into the hands of criminals by strengthening our response at the border, by preventing the theft and criminal diversion of handguns into criminals' hands, and by taking steps to remove dangerous firearms from dangerous situations. Mr. Speaker, we've also prepared to support the provinces, and we have given the province of Quebec tens of millions of dollars to assist the police, and we look forward to them finally distributing that to municipal police services to help them do the important work of keeping their communities safe.
The Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, for months I have asked this government for certainty on getting international farm workers to Canadian farms. These workers are vital to Canadian fruit and vegetable producers. With commercial flights being cancelled from Mexico and the Caribbean, where the vast majority of workers come from, many farmers across the country are left wondering exactly how and when they will get their workers. Will the minister tell farmers the plan for getting workers to farms after mid-March, when the largest number of farm workers are set to arrive?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government recognizes the integral role farm workers and farmers play in ensuring Canadians have access to food, and we're here to support them. We're working very hard to ensure the continued safety and timely arrival of temporary foreign workers into Canada. In the case of temporary foreign workers in ag and seafood sectors, our government is deferring the requirement that they quarantine in a government-approved hotel until March 14th to allow for the development of tailored solutions. In the interim, temporary foreign workers entering Canada will go to the usual place of quarantine provided by their employer under existing quarantine rules. We value and are so appreciative of the work of these workers, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, in Beauce, foreign workers are not a choice, they're a necessity. Companies like Acier d'Armature in Saint-Benoît-l'Arbre are getting tied up in red tape and now, especially, endless delays. Businesses of this kind need foreign workers to remain operational and deliver on their contracts. I raised this issue with the minister at virtually the same time last year. Nothing has changed in a year, and it's all the pandemic's fault if you listen to him. I'd like to know what the minister is going to do to help these companies, and when does he plan to do that? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, we've been working closely with the agricultural sector. We understand the needs for foreign workers, and we're working very closely with those industries. The Agriculture Minister and myself have invested heavily and we'll continue to support those workers and farmers, of course, and we thank them for their work.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a commercial driver in my riding has a job pending, but his fast card has expired. All requirements were met except for an in-person interview. The problem? The FAST Support Service Office is closed due to the pandemic. What does this mean for renewals? Windsor-Essex is the busiest border crossing in North America. Failures in processing fast card means jobs lost and delays at the border. What specifically is being done to fix the problem? Thank you, Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, international bridges and border crossing are critical economic links between Canada and the United States, and we support essential supply chains, and those borders support essential supply chains for many different industries. We are aware of the impact that COVID-19 pandemic and related travel restrictions have had on those border crossing. We're closely monitoring the situation to ensure that these border crossing and bridges continue to operate safely for individuals and supply chain. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sydney Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, the evidence is clear. Indigenous and racialized Canadians are overrepresented in the justice system. Indigenous people accounted for just 5% of the Canadian adult population, but 30% of the federally incarcerated inmates. This is shameful. However, the Minister of Justice has recently tabled a critical piece of legislation which includes reforms that will help address the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the justice system. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice update the House?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I want to first thank the member from Sydney Victoria for his tireless advocacy in the fight against systemic racism. We are finally turning the page on failed conservative criminal justice policies that have not made us safe and not deterred criminals. Instead, they've resulted in the over-incarceration of Indigenous people, Black people, and marginalized Canadians. The package that has been tabled is a necessary reset for our criminal law. It proposes to repeal certain mandatory minimum penalties, restore greater availability of conditional sentence orders, and provide police and prosecutors the tools and guidance to treat addiction as a health issue. Bill C-22 represents an important step forward in the fight against systemic racism. We hope that members across the aisle support this bill that will truly keep all communities in Canada safe. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 2 weeks since I asked the Prime Minister to take action on the Line 5 issue. This requires a leader-to-leader interaction. When will the Prime Minister personally pick up the phone, call President Biden, and ask him to intervene to keep Line 5 open?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said, we take this issue very seriously. Line 5 is vital to our energy security, vital to our economy, provides thousands of jobs at refineries in Sarnia, in Montreal, at Lévis, Quebec. It supplies 53% of Ontario's crude oil supply, 66% of Quebec's. It supplies Michigan with 55% of their statewide propane. So I assure this House, we are looking at all our options. Line 5 is a vital pipeline for Canada's energy security. We support it. We will defend it.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Confederation.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government has presided over thousands of job losses in Alberta's energy sector. At the same time, our energy workers watch foreign oil come into this country from third world dictators and human rights abusers. Clearly, this Liberal government is willing to support jobs in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Russia, Nigeria, and others instead of supporting jobs here in Canada. What specific action will this Liberal government take this year to reduce foreign oil imports into Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Happy to remind the honourable member that we approved of TMX. We're building it. That's 7,000 jobs that we've created. The Line 3 pipeline, we approved it. That's another 7,000 jobs. NGTL 2021, we've approved it. There are thousands of jobs created there. LNG Canada, we're building it. Thousands of jobs there. and orphan and inactive wells, $1.7 billion we've put towards that, thousands of jobs to be created, and of course the wage subsidy, where more than 500,000 workers were kept in their jobs in a pandemic in Alberta alone. That is our record, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the last 3 weeks, there's been a growing bipartisan consensus the Keystone XL pipeline cancellation was a mistake. Now, high-profile Democrat and Republican leaders are calling for the project to be continued, and more than a dozen states are pondering legal action against the Biden administration. The Liberals say they support the chance. Now is their chance to actually do it and stand up for KXL. Will the government finally do so?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're not happy with the decision to cancel Keystone XL's permit, but I'll quote Chris Bloomer, the CEO of the Canadian Energy Pipeline Association. He said Keystone XL is a loss, but is it the end of Canada's oil and gas industry? Absolutely not. Canada is a world leader in responsible energy development. We have abundant natural resources that can help meet the growing demand for affordable energy around the world and can offset global emissions, end quote. Mr. Speaker, we agree the world needs more Canadian energy, and we support our energy workers. Thank you.
L'honorable.
The honourable member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Mr. Speaker, Parc Safari is one of the main tourist attractions in Montérégie, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors every year. Like many tourism operators, they've been hit hard by COVID-19 and have had to adapt to survive. A few weeks ago, I was pleased to announce that we are allocating close to $1 million to Parc Safari, which will help it cover new costs and continue to welcome families and protect the jobs of the many people who work there. Could the Minister of Economic Development tell the House how this government is delivering for tourism businesses in my riding and all across Canada? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Châteauguay-Lacolle for her question and her outstanding work. Parc Safari is a major tourism attraction. We know that tourism has faced major challenges in this pandemic, and we've been there since the beginning to help. In Quebec alone, we've supported around 1,000 tourism companies with over $44 million invested in individual companies. And all across Canada, it's $350 million distributed to over 3,500 tourism organizations.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Canadians are struggling with significant income loss due to the pandemic. Even with the CERB or CRB, many are unable to afford rent. The debt load in rent arrears is staggering, and provinces lift their temporary eviction ban. Many Canadians are at risk of losing their home. This is especially acute in large cities and has disproportionately affected women, people of color, and people with disabilities. The National Housing Strategy access adequate housing is a basic human right. Will the Prime Minister put in place national eviction standards and a federal retroactive residential tenant support benefit so that no one will end up on the street because they can't afford rent?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government's priority is to make sure that Canadians can keep food on their tables and a roof over their heads. That's why we took quick action by creating the Canada Emergency Response Benefit and the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy to ensure Canadians have the support they need to stay in their homes during the COVID-19 pandemic. We've moved Canadians from the CERB into employment insurance with no increase in EI premiums. In addition, we're concluding agreements with provinces and territories for the Canada Housing Benefit, a game changer to enable people to receive direct payments to enable them to pay rent.
The honourable member for Vancouver Grenville.
Disturbingly, Vancouver stats show anti-Asian hate crimes are up 717%. At the same time, China's national security law is of grave concern to Canadians with ties to Hong Kong. The two Michaels continue to be arbitrarily detained. As for the Uyghurs, why is it genocide for my peoples, but not for the Uyghurs? Move or boycott the Beijing Olympics? Well, the government has abdicated that decision in favor of an Olympic committee. Mr. Speaker, will the government please stand up for justice and human rights and demonstrate it has the backs of Chinese Canadians, indeed for all Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question. And as we have stated repeatedly, we are gravely concerned with the allegations coming out of Xinjiang with respect to the treatment of Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslim minorities. We have urged the Chinese government to allow a group of experts, international and impartial, to examine the situation. And at the same time, we are working with our international partners and putting together our expertise with respect to the allegations, the serious allegations that have come out of China.
And that's all the time we have for today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons pour aujourd'hui.
That's all of the time for today.
Au règlement,
2 points of order. We will start with the Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. I believe that if you seek it, you will find that this House would consent on the following motion. That this House condemn Facebook's decision to ban Australian media's content from its social network. The House should affirm that this bullying from Facebook does not belong in a democracy. We would ask the government to table a bill to force web giants to pay their fair share for the media content that they use. I would just remind members that, by courtesy, honorable members should wait for the motion to be moved and then they can say what they want to say. Now, all those opposed to the honorable member moving the motion, please say nay. Oh, there was a nay. We do not have unanimous consent.
Excuse me. Oui, l'honorable député de Louis Saint-Laurent.
The honourable member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Very well. Since it is Thursday, as usual, we ask what the plan is for our parliamentary business without forgetting that for a month, all of us here in this House have been ready to debate the bill to eliminate the infamous $1,000 for non-essential travelers. Will this government soon be tabling that legislation so we can finally adopt it? Well, that's the question we were coming to later. But I first have a statement to make. So if that's all right, I'll just ask for members' patience. We'll come back to it later.
Following the order raised earlier today, I would like to make a statement on Bill C-13, an act to amend the Criminal Code single event sports betting, and its similarity to Bill 218, an act to amend the Criminal Code